where are you from?
Perry, New York. Born on a dairy farm in 1926, and my dad brought me on Oneida Lake when I was 4 years old. That was 81 years ago. And my dad always told me, if you can retire, pick this lake, no other lake.
So you've always been fishing on Oneida Lake?
Yeah. Not to say I haven't fished a few other lakes, but that's my main lake.
About fishing during the fall, what do you do specifically that you wouldn't necessarily do in the summertime?
Well, I do a lot of fall perch fishing, and that's the only time they school up on, and you can get perch. But in the walleyes you use, in the fall you use more spoons than stick baits, because they like spoons. I don't know what there is about spoons in the fall, but starting later part of August till September, October, November, spoons. I used to jig a lot, but my shoulders won't let me jig. But I also jigged in the fall with a bucktail jig and a worm on top was just a half a worm.
And do you have any favorite spots to fish during the fall?
Oh, I got a lot of spots, but I'm not going to tell them to you. Yeah, I'll tell you, the 113 on the shoals is good. Down to 121, fish that downgrade, the slope on the downgrade of the shoal there, but you fish that slope all the way down to the bottom. Then there's One Tree Pinnacle, which I couldn't even explain to you where it is. You got to know where it is. And that's a good place to fish in the fall. Okay.
Do you drift, or what do you do?
When I'm jigging, I drift. When I'm fishing for perch with minnows, I drift. And when I'm fishing with spoons, I troll with lead line.
Any tips for beginners? People just starting out?
You troll about 1.7 to 1.9, and we jerk spoons. We go like this. And that action, when you put it back, the spoon goes like this. It's like a wounded minnow, that's dying, and they'll hit it. Same with a stick bait when you're trolling. And don't troll too fast. Like this kind of, well, I can't tell you that. Well, I can. It's hot weather now, and they are not active at all right now. So instead of jerking, you just drag a stick bait, and usually just stick bait this time of year. But in the fall, you jerk because the water cools out. A walleye is most active at 72 degrees. People think they are more active in cold water. Well, they're active, but not as like they are in 72 degrees of water. In the fall, they're hungry. They want to stock up for the winter, and they'll feed. The secret to walleye fishing in August is, number one, use spoons. Number two, be out before the sun comes up. You don't wait till the sun comes up. Your best fishing is an hour before the sun comes up and an hour after the sun comes up. After that, you might as well go home and rest, because that's when they'll hit. And if you can't get up in the morning, you aren't going to get walleyes in August. Simple as that. Temperature in August now, the last time I was out, which was a couple days ago, was 80.2 degrees. And I let the probe down to the bottom, and it was 79.2. And walleyes are very slow when it gets like that. They don't want to move. They don't want the bait move fast. Everything's got to be slow because they're not active. And another thing to remember, sometimes out in the real deep water, there's not a lot of oxygen down there in August. And sometimes they'll come in closer to the weeds, where the weeds are giving off oxygen, and they like it there. And the bait fish will be in there too. But in general rule, August is a spoon. You use your spoons. Color. They have one stinger they call perch. That's a good one. They have a stinger that's called it's an orange spoon. They seem to like orange a lot. And you use about the 3-inch spoons. Don't use the little ones. Use the bigger spoons. But like I say, they don't want it fast in August. if you're jerking, you go slow. Wait, and let drop it back. And when that thing drops back, they think it's a wounded shad or something, and they'll nail it. And that's a good way to get them. You tip it. Just put a half a worm on. Don't put a whole worm on. Just a half a worm on a hair jig. Orange jigs are good. Black jigs are good. Purple jigs are good in this lake. Those are the three best colors in this lake. And they work for years. You know, like I fished this lake for 81 years, so they work. That colors work. They like orange. They like purple. I don't know why they like purple, because I don't know, but they just do. And my favorite is an orange jig tipped with a worm. Orange head with orange feathers. Or hair, deer hair. I make my own jigs. In fact, I got a ton of them. I don't jig them more. I got to put them up for sale, I guess. But I made jigs. I put 2 coats. I put an undercoat, a primer coat. I put the color on. I put the eyes on. Then I put a coat of protective enamel over the top, clear protective enamel, so they don't chip right off. Some jigs you buy, that paint comes off the first time you use them. I can use mine all summer long and they won't chip.
Okay, so you've been fishing on Oneida Lake for decades now. Have you noticed any changes over the years?
Many changes. When I first was a kid on this lake, there were whitefish in here. And I think the last whitefish washed up on shore down by Frank Tripp's. And that was when I just got back from World War II, and I think it was in 1944 maybe, or 43. And that's the last time I seen a whitefish. But I caught whitefish out of this lake. But they're gone. They're gone. And there was no snowmobiles. When they had ice, there was no snowmobiles on ice. We fished with tip-ups in the wintertime. We made them ourselves. A piece of doweling, a piece of copper wire that's very limber with a loop on the end. And we put the line through the loop, put it down with a minnow on it. And we could leave it there, and in the morning we came back, we'd have 3 or 4 hangers. But once the snowmobiles came around, they took all your hangers, threw your line in the ice, and with all frozen in, you lost it. And another thing, the water is a lot clearer now than, and I think that is because of the zebras. It used to be, the water was not clear. My wife and I, in August, we'd find these patches out there, it was all green, just like pea soup. And we loved to fish underneath them. I don't know whether it gave shade to the walleyes, but we always had good luck fishing underneath that. And we fished with in those days, a lot of spinners and worms. Trolling real slow, probably 0.4 or 0.5 miles an hour. And that stuff is gone now. I mean, you can't. It's no longer on this lake. But the zebras have cleaned it up, and there's more weeds now than there used to be, because the water's so clear, the sun is going down, and the weeds are growing.
Would you say fishing is better now, or was it better back then? Can you tell the difference?
If you know how to fish, the fishing is excellent now. But back then, anybody could catch walleyes. You didn't have to be no expert. I mean, you'd go out with a worm and a spinner, and you could get your limit of walleyes. I think I'm trying to remember, we allowed 15 then, I think. 15 walleyes. And people, with hard times, people would eat the walleyes. That's how they go out fishing, and they might get their meal for 2 or 3 days. And now there's not many people that are hard up, I don't think, because they seem to all have money. So I don't know.
Is there anything specific that you have to do now that you didn't have to do back then to catch fish?
Well, I think the fish are smarter now. I don't know if that's the right word, because the fish can't be smart, but they seem to be more selective. And one thing I do notice different is that years ago when we fished, you could fish shallow or deep and still get them. Now there's certain times of year you fish shallow, there's certain times of year you fish deep. That has changed a lot. And the clarity of the water, I think, has a real lot to do with that. And the zebras, everybody says the zebras are going to ruin the fish. I can't see they hurt the fishing at all. I can't. In fact, they're stocking sturgeons in here now, which they never did before. But at one time, this lake had salmon in it. during Indian time. This was full of salmon, this lake. And up on the other end there was a big Indian settlement up there. And they caught the salmon, dried them like they used to do years and years ago before your time or mine. And this is a great lake. I mean, my God, you can eat every fish out of this lake. And there's not one lake in New York State you can say that. Probably not one lake in the country you can say that.